So, Rory, in the last conversation, we were talking about changing your personality,
Hmm.
and you never said what you thought of that.
Well, I think when you learn a language, often your personality does change. I notice with my students that they often seem quite different when they speak English
Hmm.
to when they speak Japanese. I'm not sure if that's a language thing or a cultural thing. But you speak more than one language.
Yes, I do.
Do you think your personality is different in each language?
That's a really good question. Just thinking of it right now, I think maybe for me it's more a question of the culture,
Hmm.
because I think when I am in an environment where I'm expected to be more extroverted, I tend to try to live up to that.
Right.
I tend to try to be more cheerful, more
Mhm.
open, more friendly,
Hmm.
or friendlier, I should say. But when I'm somewhere where I know that it's expected of me to be quieter, I do tend to become more quiet.
Right.
So, I don't know. That's a really good question. And
Do you think there might be something in languages which make them like a more extroverted language or a more introverted language? Like I think about Italians. Maybe it's a stereotype of Italians, but they seem to be very extroverted, and the language seems to help them in that extroversion.
that's true. That's very true. That's a good question, because I'm just trying to think of culture and languages in general, and there's that debate of how cultures and languages are intertwined.
Hmm.
Is it the culture that came first,
Hmm.
or is it the language that made the culture the way it is? So I don't know. I really don't know. But I
Yeah.
would love to read more research and find
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed since I moved to Asia, to
Mhm.
countries like Japan and Korea, the people do seem more introverted, and the language also seems more introverted. So I wonder if the language, like you say, I wonder which came first, the language or the culture.
Mm-mm. And I think, to add on to that, when I think of Asian students that I've noticed speaking English,
Hmm.
which to some people is a more extroverted language, they always seem more confident,
Yeah.
more, they seem friendlier, they seem more open
Hmm.
to talking about themselves, their family life. But when you talk to them in their native language, it seems like they revert back to that, their cultural norms, which would
Right.
probably be less.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe there is something there.
Yeah. I guess the culture over here in Asian countries is people are less likely to share information. There's less. I mean, in the West, especially recently, there's quite a pressure on you to be more open.
That's true.
Whereas uh, maybe in Korea, Japan, China, people are more closed
Mm-mm.
and just have different boundaries.
I'm just trying to think of African countries. Like being a Nigerian myself, we've had the issue of colonization,
Hmm.
and where the Western British culture is valorized. So coming from that aspect, I wonder before how we were. Were we
Mhm.
more introverted? Because in a lot of ways we're very similar to Asian cultures
Right.
and Asian values. We have a lot of that as well. But now it's true that being able to speak English and express yourself in a more Western way is a lot. It weighs a lot. It means
Mhm.
a lot. So people really enjoy that. People really take their value from that.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a really interesting
Yeah.
topic.
Because people often see England or British people as a bit introverted and a bit quiet, a bit cold, and yet we share the same language as America, and people tend to think that people from North America are quite brash and extroverted.
That's true.
So I guess it is more cultural than language based.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we've come to a solution then.
Okay.
We found it. It is the culture more than the language then.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm here with Rachel, and we were talking about expiration date. So you were saying that you throw out your clothes regularly.
Fairly regularly.
Yeah. Do you donate them or just toss them?
I put them in the recycling
Oh, there you go.
and hope they're going to be remade into something else.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I always like take it out on the day that they'll say that they'll pick up
Yeah.
clothes.
The reason for that is because they usually throw clothes out when they've started to look a bit shabby, so I don't think anyone else wants to wear them by
Right.
that stage.
What about furniture? How often do you try to get new furniture?
Almost never. That's something I don't. Yeah, I'll put up with what I've got.
Yeah.
It seems like such a waste to throw out such large things.
Yeah. But you never want to replace the couch or the chair.
The couch has been replaced 3 or 4 times.
Right.
That's a big one, but we've still got the same kitchen table. We did get some new chairs.
Yeah, I've never been a big furniture guy, but when I see something that's really cheap, like I would never buy new furniture. I'm always amazed like who buys new furniture, because when you walk by a store and you see the furniture, it's so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to sound really cheap, but it's like, I'm like, wow, why would you pay hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars for that when you can just buy one used or whatever for $10 or $20?
Definitely a used furniture person now. When we moved into our house, we did go to a furniture store and bought all new furniture. It's easy at the start and everything looks new and it's kind of nice. But I almost exclusively buy secondhand furniture now. You can, depending on which store you go to, you can get some really good bargains on some beautiful old antique that look really nice in your house and cost a fraction of something new.
Yeah, that's why you like anything that's made with metal or wood, because usually you think it's going to age well.
Yes.
Plastic, not so much.
No, I've definitely sworn off plastic. I think plastic's a fill-in if you need something quickly.
Yeah.
And cheaply, but definitely don't like to buy plastic now.
So what about like electronic goods, like getting a new TV, new refrigerator, stuff like that? Like how often do you buy?
We just wait until that breaks down. That's a pretty easy one.
What about the TV though? The TVs don't break down; they go on forever. Like how often do you think, "Oh, I want a new TV. I want a new, nicer TV"?
Our last TV broke.
It did?
Well, we had lightning hit the house.
Oh.
And we lost several electronic items. We lost a keyboard and a computer. I think we lost 2 out of... We had 3 hard disk DVD players.
So it was an electrical surge that like fried all the circuits.
It fried the house, yeah, pretty much.
Wow. I did not know that could happen.
Yeah.
Okay, Meg, let's talk about idioms related to the body.
Oh.
So we have lots of idioms in English that we use for specific meanings. So to learn these idioms, we'll just talk about them by asking each other questions.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is about dating. So, should a man always foot the bill on a date?
Well, I think I'm a little bit of a traditionalist in that maybe at the beginning or the first date, the man should foot the bill. But after that, if you're in a relationship, it doesn't really seem fair for the man to pay all the time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, on a date, I feel awkward if I don't pay the bill. So, yeah, the man should foot the bill on the first date. Okay, so the next one related to feet is when you dance, do you have 2 left feet?
Yes, I definitely have 2 left feet. I'm not a good dancer by any means, and I don't really enjoy it, so I think I look a little awkward when I'm dancing. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely have 2 left feet. I just look like a mess on the dance floor. So, and I don't enjoy it. And I think because I'm nervous, I want to get out of there. So, yeah.
Right. I understand your feeling.
Not mine. Okay. So, also related to feet is the leg. So, in your city, what costs an arm and a leg?
In my city where I live right now, I feel like fruit costs an arm and a leg. It can be quite expensive, especially if you want fruit that's out of season. But in my hometown in America, you can usually get fruit very cheap. So it feels like it costs an arm and a leg here. What
Right.
about for you?
Yeah, the city I live in now is in Japan, and it's also very expensive. Taxis cost an arm and a leg. So to take a taxi ride is so expensive. In America, where I'm from, I would say healthcare costs an arm and a leg. It's so expensive.
Yes,
Crazy expensive.
right.
You never
Much
want to get
more-
sick. Yeah.
Yes,
Even
yes.
health insurance costs an arm and a leg. It's very, very
Right.
costly.
I agree with that.
Yeah. All right, so let's now talk about feelings. So, is it okay to give people the cold shoulder sometimes?
Well,
Nobody likes the cold shoulder.
right. Nobody likes the cold shoulder. I don't think that we should give people the cold shoulder. However, I have to admit that I have sometimes given a friend or a family member the cold shoulder when I've been upset about something.
Yeah, the whole thing about the cold shoulder is you're actually, you do want them to talk to you. You just want them to
Right.
feel bad.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of passive aggressive.
Exactly. Like, I'm mad at you, but I really want you to just see that I'm mad at you and then
Right.
you give me attention and I'm happy.
Yes, you want to make it clear that you're mad
Yeah, exactly.
by giving the cold shoulder.
Right.
Have you ever given someone the cold shoulder?
Oh, yeah, I can be very moody. So I've definitely given people the cold shoulder. And then I'm embarrassed sometimes afterwards. I'm like, why did I do that? That's so bad.
Yeah, feel a little guilty later.
Yeah. So we're both teachers. Do you ever give a student the cold shoulder?
No, I don't think I would ever give a student the cold shoulder because if they have questions or need help, I want to be able to assist them. So that's a little different, I think. What about you?
Yeah, no, totally. Like, the students give me the cold shoulder, right?
yes.
So you know that something's wrong. But yeah, a teacher can't give students the cold
No,
shoulder.
no, you can't.
It's impossible. Or it shouldn't be done. All right, those were some interesting points. Okay, so Meg, this week we're talking about just grooming habits and stuff. So let's go now to like our teeth.
Oh,
Now the dentist says you should floss every day. Do you floss every day?
now I do actually. I'm pretty consistent with it because a couple years back I had some cavity issues that I didn't want to go through again, and I wasn't so good about flossing before that, but the dentist said that if I flossed and used mouthwash regularly, probably it could be avoided. And so ever since then, rarely every day I do it.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, the dentist always says you should floss more. I'm pretty good about every other day, and then every now and then I'll get on a binge, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna floss every meal like I'm supposed to. But I'm pretty good. I brush my teeth twice a day. I know some people at work, I see them brushing after lunch. Are you one of those people that brushes their teeth 3 times a day?
No, I do twice a day also. Do you do morning and night?
Yeah, and actually my dentist told me don't do it 3 times a day because if you do it too much, it could do damage to your gums. So, plus he said I was brushing my teeth too hard. So
Yeah.
I was pushing my gums back.
I actually had the exact same experience earlier this year. I went to the dentist because I felt like I maybe had some cavities because I had sensitivity in my teeth, and I was also brushing too hard because I was working, so I really want them to be so clean, and so
Yeah.
my gums also were receding a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it's so painful when it happens. You realize you have to reverse it, you know? Yeah. So what about the tongue scraper? Do you do the little tongue scraper thing?
I don't have like a tongue scraper. I just kind of use my toothbrush and just brush it a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you use tongue scraper?
I have one. I use it sometimes.
How does it work? What does it do?
It's just like you're raking leaves. You just put it in your mouth and you just like scrape your tongue. And you do get some stuff that comes off of it. You're like, oh, wow.
Oh,
But,
it
yeah.
sounds kind of gross, actually.
It is a little bit gross, yeah.
But good for your mouth.
Yeah, definitely good. Definitely good. So then the other thing I guess we can talk about is shaving. Now, so I'm a guy, so I have the facial hair.
Right.
So, but I'm pretty lucky. I only have to shave maybe twice a week.
Oh, really?
I can get away with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the full-on, manly beard thing that comes out, so.
Yeah. Yeah, some people have to shave like twice a day, so that seems like it would be inconvenient.
Yeah. So do you I guess because you're a woman,
Right.
do you have to do the legs thing?
Yes. Yes, I do shave my legs pretty much every time I take a shower.
Really?
Yeah.
How annoying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is annoying. I actually really don't like it. I wish I didn't have to do it. And I mean, I guess I could choose to stop, but
Yeah.
I'd rather do it. So, yeah. Usually
Wow.
every time I take a shower, because then if you're wearing a skirt or shorts, it's visible. So, yeah, just try
Wow.
to be careful.
And honestly, from a guy's perspective, when I look and I think about women shaving basically their calves below their knees, it looks like it'd be very easy to cut yourself because your legs are kind of hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think for the calves, it's not so bad because it's kind of a straight, it's more smooth. But the knee part, you have to be careful.
Right, yeah.
Because it's like a shape, and ankles.
Oh, yeah.
And feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like for guys, our problem is right under the chin and then the Adam's apple. The Adam's apple's brutal because you kind of have to go around it, so it's very easy to cut yourself.
Yeah. Do you use an electric razor?
No, I should. I'm very environmentally unfriendly. I use those plastic razors because they're just so easy.
Yeah.
And actually, I kind of get away with it because at the gym I go to, they offer it. They have free razors in the men's room, so I just do it there.
Yeah.
Save a few bucks.
Might as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, anyway, I guess we're somewhat healthy.
Yeah, or clean at least.
Exactly. So, Rachel, you are from New Zealand, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Now, when I lived in London many years ago, my roommate was from New Zealand, really nice guy, and he had the coolest job. He would ride around a motorbike in New Zealand, in the
Yes.
bush, as he called
Yes.
it, the wild, as we say,
The bush.
the bush, and his job was to just kill invasive species. That was his job. Just go out and plant traps for rabbits and...
Yes, that's right. Actually, I have a friend who does that now.
Really?
Yes.
So it's that big of a problem. You have to
It's a huge problem, yeah.
Really? So what animals are a problem?
Rabbits, like you mentioned. Possums are a big problem in the bush because they eat a lot of the native plants.
We have possums too in America, in Northern California, and they are disgusting. I love animals, but they're one animal I don't like. They're nasty.
There is a big possum hunt in many areas every year, and they're starting to sell the pelts as fur because it's not a protected species, so there's no limits on how much you can catch and how much fur you can sell.
Yeah, and they often have rabies, right? At least in the States, we have to be very careful of them.
No, we don't have rabies in New Zealand.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yes, so...
Yeah,
No
we have
animals
crazy
have rabies.
stories of possums or raccoons having rabies. And so when you see one, they tell you, do not touch it, don't go near it,
we don't have that
because if you get bit, you're not good. And I got bit by a dog when I was in Thailand and had to get the rabies shot, and it was not fun.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, and then luckily for me, I went in to get the shot because I didn't know really about rabies. I wasn't educated about it, and I thought, well, the dog just bit me a little bit, but I better go and check. And then the doctor was like, oh no, it can kill you. Yeah, you better get it checked out.
No,
So
this is one of the reasons we have very strict import laws in New Zealand, because we've seen the damage that can be done, and we're very strict now, and rabies is one of the diseases that we don't have. are very keen not to ever have.
Yeah, you hope so. So you have a problem with possums and with rabbits? Anything
Rabbits
else?
on farms. There's also wild deer and boar in the forests who also do a lot of damage, and stray cats and dogs as well also kill a lot of native species. There's no native animals in New Zealand. The only mammals that are native to New Zealand are dolphins and bats. So there's no natural hunters except for hawks. So the birds, a lot of the birds have lost the ability to fly, and they nest on the ground. So they're enormously vulnerable to predator species like cats and dogs. They've almost completely decimated many bird species. So that's why there are hunters throughout New Zealand who are basically given free rein to shoot whatever they can find, because they are so destructive to the natural environment.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that you have some campaign to have like no predators by a certain year, right? Like a new thing in New Zealand.
I haven't heard of that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's always been a goal.
I think that it was in the news. I'll have to check, so I could be wrong, but I think it was 2050 is the goal of the government, to have no predators.
That would be amazing.
And they say the big one is dogs and cats. That's like the sticking point.
One, yeah, they're starting to become much stricter about controlling cats and dogs now, keeping cats inside and keeping dogs leashed, so that they don't run off into the bush and cause a lot of problems.
But dogs, I think, are more domesticated. They're probably not as dangerous, but cats are basically, they're not really that domesticated. They're still natural hunters.
Yeah, we keep them with us to hunt, pests like mice who live with us. Yeah, so they catch a lot of birds. But with the birds nesting on the ground and unable to fly, it's very easy for the dogs to kill them as well.
Oh, I see.
So,
and dogs just can be kind of naughty sometimes.
Heck yes. And they run off.
Wow. So what do you think? Do you think your country can achieve this goal, no predators, by 2050?
It sounds very challenging. I think at present only some of the offshore islands are completely pest-free. No predators. Yeah, that's not quite the same as no pests. That's because pests also include things like rabbits and possums and deer, and that don't eat the native species. So maybe just predator-free might be a bit more achievable, I think.
So Rachel, I thought we would talk a little bit about items and their shelf life. Like how long will you keep something? For example, like a book or like clothing. Because like yesterday, I was talking to my students, and they were surprised when I admitted that the shirt I was wearing I had had for over 10 years. Now, they're young.
Right.
They can't imagine that.
No, that might be a function of being young.
Right,
Because
exactly.
their clothes of 10 years ago are obviously too small.
Yeah.
Do
Do you like to keep your clothes a long time?
If I really like them, I might.
Yeah. How often do you toss out your clothes?
I toss out clothes once or twice a year. I'll go through my wardrobe and throw out things that are too small or have started to look shabby. But there are other things that I just keep year after year after year. Probably things people don't see as often, like pajamas, might last a little longer.
Yeah.
Some people advise that if you haven't worn something for 6 months, you should throw it out. But that seems to me to be not logical, given that there are 4 seasons and they last a year. If you haven't worn something for a year, maybe you should consider throwing it out. But yeah, definitely at the start of the season, not in the opposite season.
Right.
You have to think about the weather.
Well, what about food? So we live in Japan. We're both teachers in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I often wonder about is the sashimi and the sushi, the raw fish. Like how long can you keep it before you eat it? They say you're supposed to have it that night, but I sometimes eat it the next morning or
Yes.
even for lunch.
With fish, as well as other meats, I think it's very easy to tell because you can tell by the smell whether something's good or not. I actually think the rice is more dangerous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it will grow bacteria. Because it's been warm, it'll grow bacteria easily at room temperature. The rice is the part you need to be careful about.
Well, what about like other foods? Like, are you somebody who's really strict about the expiration date, or?
I'm not. I think the expiration date on most products is errs on the side of safety. Another thing is people confuse the best by date with the expiry date.
Right.
The best by date is just about freshness, flavor. For example,
and that's the
with
date
spices,
they put on the package in the
that's
store.
often the date that people
Sell
go
by, yeah.
Yeah, sell by and best by. For example, spices might have a best by date. After that, they might clump a little, they might lose a little flavor, but they're not dangerous.
You can still eat it.
You can still use them, yeah.
My
So
rule
it's
is
hard to
always
tell.
3 days. So I'll eat anything if it's within, except for meat maybe, but anything if it's within 3 days of the expiration date or the sell by date on the stores.
I think that matters. Yeah, to me, it makes an enormous difference what it is. For example, moyashi, which is bean sprouts. I'll eat them on the day or the day after, but not after that. They start getting bad really quickly. But, for example, a jar of pickles, that's going to last much longer than the 3 days after.
I think the big one, I guess you're right about time, is dairy. The one, milk is obvious, because milk you can smell.
Yes, but on the other hand, it just turns into yogurt.
Right, yeah. So that's the other one is yogurt. So yogurt, I'll see it in the fridge, and I'm like, how long can I keep this? Like sometimes it'll be past the expiration date, but it smells fine. It looks fine.
Well, milk, yogurt is soured milk. So it's difficult to say at which point it sours because it's already sour.
Yeah, and cheese too lasts forever, it seems like.
Pretty much. You can see the mold on cheese.
Yeah. So what about if you see bread and there's a little mold on the bread?
No.
Are you old school? You cut around it?
I used to cut the mold off cheese, but having learned more about visible mold is only a small amount of it, and parts of mold you can't see are branching into the food.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that makes it a little dodgier. So, no, I probably wouldn't eat bread that had any kind of mold on it. And I'm dodgy about cheese, too. That's got the wrong sort of mold on it.
Right.
It's the right sort of mold, like a blue cheese, and that's fine.
Right. And I should clarify here, neither of us are medical professionals. So
don't take this advice.
Don't take our advice. We're just talking about our own habits here. So what about juice? What about juice? Like, how long can you keep juice? Can you smell when juice is bad?
I don't usually buy juice, so I don't really know.
Oh. Yeah.
Maybe you can smell it.
Maybe you can smell it.
Yeah, I'd probably toss juice because I'm not experienced enough with it, obviously, to have made my own mind up about it, so I'd probably go by the date for that one.
What's interesting is when you see some foods that you think will last forever, but actually they won't. They just have an expiration date that's way in the future, like canned goods.
Yes.
Sometimes it's surprising when you're like, oh, there actually is an expiration date on there.
There is.
But it's way in the future.
Way in the future. As long as the can's not dented, I think.
Or rusty, right?
The rule for that, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting topic. So, Megan, the last one we were talking about idioms, but we didn't cover them all. Let's go over some more idioms.
Okay.
All right. So, the first one is, what activity is in your blood?
I would say anything with nature is in my blood. So, hiking or especially kayaking. I love going kayaking. And so it's hard for me to resist if I'm in a place with beautiful nature. I need to go outside.
So what about baking? Isn't baking kind of just natural for you that you would just love to bake? Isn't it in your blood?
I do also love to bake. Yeah, I guess hiking and baking are both in my blood together, kind of two different activities. So baking, especially when I can make very creative and decorative desserts to share with people. So I don't like to bake for myself, but sharing with others, it's quite enjoyable for me. Do you have any activities or things that are in your blood?
Well, I think one is actually just teaching. I love teaching. I just want to teach all the time. Even if I won the lottery, I'd be a teacher. I just like thinking of lessons, thinking of new ideas for lessons, trying technology with lessons. So even on my free time, I like thinking about it. And another thing is jogging. Even though most people are surprised because I'm a little fat, I'm about 20 pounds overweight, but I run almost every day.
I think I've seen you running before.
Yeah, I literally run every day. Like if I don't run, I feel terrible. Like it's the most relaxing thing for me.
Yeah.
I can't go 2 or 3 days. Well, 2 days maybe, but I can't go 3 or 4 days without running.
So jogging is really in your blood.
Yeah, and I started when I was a kid. You know the movie Forrest Gump where he just starts running?
Right. Yes, yes.
Yeah, that was me as a kid. I
Run,
literally would
Forrest, run.
Yeah, I would just run out of my driveway also in the country and just go running for an hour.
Wow.
Just to run. I thought it was fun.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's definitely in my blood. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about feelings. So when you get criticized, do you take it to heart?
I think my first reaction is to take it to heart. So sometimes I might be a little oversensitive when I first get criticized. But after some time passes and I'm able to think about it, usually I can see how that criticism can be useful and I can try to make a change or improve something. Or I can decide that I don't care about that person's opinion. What about you? What do you how do you respond?
Yeah, I used to take things to heart a lot, but as I've gotten older, as many people do, now a lot of it just rolls off my back. As we say, like water off a duck's back. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realize that everybody has different opinions and don't worry about it.
Yeah. I think that's a good attitude to have.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one also about feelings and opinions. So are you more likely to bite your lip or speak your mind when you disagree with somebody?
I think it depends on the situation. So if I feel like someone else is being treated unfairly or there are some rules that are there for a reason that should be followed, I am more likely to speak my mind. But if it's something personal or just related to me, I might bite my lip to try to keep the peace. What would you do? Bite your lip or speak your mind?
Well, I have a big mouth, so no. So I always speak my mind. So I have a really big mouth. I just never keep it inside. Yeah, it's really hard for me to bite my lip. Yeah, so that can be a bad thing.
But sometimes good.
Yeah. Say it like it is, as they say. So, Rachel, you said that in your home country of New Zealand, there's lots of birds that don't fly.
Yes, there are a lot of birds that don't fly.
Wow, see, I only knew of the kiwi and, of course, the penguin, but I didn't know of other ones. So first, the kiwi doesn't fly,
that's
right?
the famous one.
Right.
They don't fly, but they can run very fast. I've seen them.
And, like, are the kiwi all over? Like, are there different types of kiwi?
There are several different varieties. They're very rare, though, and they're nocturnal. So
nocturnal.
I'd say most New Zealanders have never seen one in the wild. I've only seen them in kiwi parks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't see them.
So I thought they'd be like kangaroos in Australia or something. You go and there's one.
Very precious and very rare.
Oh, wow.
One that you see more often is a pukeko, which is It looks a little bit like a stork, I suppose, except it's dark blue.
What's it called?
Pukeko.
Pukeko.
Yeah, and they're a lot more common. And takahe is another one.
So the first one, though,
You can see them along the side of the road when you're driving through the countryside. They're much more common.
So this pukeko, does it fly?
No, they don't fly.
Really? And it's like
Yeah.
a stork. It has long legs.
It has quite long legs, yeah. It's a very cute little bird, but it's very dark.
How tall is it? Like up to your knee, up to your hip?
Maybe up to your knees.
Really?
Cute little bird.
That's awesome. And so what was the other one you mentioned?
Takahe, it's a very similar looking to that one. It's a little different, difficult to tell apart.
Really? And it's also like kind of dark bluish?
Yeah. Another one's a kakapo is a very famous one. It's New Zealand's flightless green parrot. It's kind of like a large fat parrot that lives on the ground.
Really?
It's extremely rare. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but around 20 years ago, I think there were only 45 left.
Oh, that is
Extremely
rare.
So
Wow.
there's an intensive breeding program for them. And
Yeah.
of course, nobody's seen those in the wild.
Wow, yeah, you have to be careful to go like the way of
They
the
do.
Tasmanian tiger.
They breed and they nest on the ground. They lay their eggs on the ground, so they're very vulnerable to introduced predators, to any animals.
Yeah, I know that like you don't have snakes, but I know that snakes, when they got into Guam, like decimated the bird population.
Yeah, that's what would happen, and that's why New Zealand immigration or customs is very strict about what kind of animals you can bring in. We don't even have snakes in zoos.
That's smart. Yeah.
Michael Jackson famously came to New Zealand in the 1980s and wanted to bring his pet snake with him, and he wasn't allowed to.
Oh, good on you.
There were no exceptions to that rule.
Are there any other birds that don't fly? Like, for example, do you have penguins
Oh yes, there's lots of penguins in New Zealand.
in the south, right?
Yeah, in the south. Oh, they come up to the north sometimes.
Really?
Occasionally
That
you'll see them.
far north?
Yeah, occasionally. Though the big colonies are down south.
Oh, that's amazing. How cool.
Yeah.
Any other birds that don't fly?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up on the internet.
No, that's
But-
still though. That's still
Yeah.
that's quite a few. That's
they are quite a
so
few.
nice. Yeah, that's
The
interesting.
most famous was the moa, of course,
The moa.
which is an ostrich-sized bird.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they were killed off before Europeans arrived in New Zealand.
Oh, easy hunting.
They were easy hunting, yeah,
Yeah.
and big feast. Yeah.
It's funny how when you go to a place, you really want to see like a local animal. So last year I went to the Middle East. I went to UAE and Oman, and I just wanted to see a camel.
Camels,
I wanted
yeah.
to see a camel so bad. And I thought, like, I had
Everyone
the feeling
drives
that they'd be on the
Mercedes these
side of the
days.
road, there'd be a camel. And I was actually kind of going out in the countryside. I wasn't just in
Yeah.
the city. And I never saw a camel. And I was asking people that work there. They're like, oh, yeah, you do see them. But I was just so heartbroken that I never saw a camel.
Oh.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite animals. I just think they look so cool. So when I go to New Zealand, I have to make sure I see a kiwi.
But you'll have to go to the Kiwi House.
The kiwi house?
Kiwi House, it's called. Or just look up zoos.
And they got them.
Yep, they got them there. But you won't see them just driving around.